So good morning, everyone, and thank you guys for joining us on the 16th Annual Missouri Reentry Conference. We're very excited that you're going to start our week with us. My name is Annie Herman. I'm the Assistant Division Director for Reentry and Educational Services with the Missouri Department of Corrections. And again, we're so excited that you guys have decided to join another reentry conference. We are virtual this year, as you guys can see, and we're very excited for the next couple of days to go over all these great topics that we put together to discuss. So I first want to thank our partners for this conference, Arches out of St. Louis. They're a wonderful partner year after year and have put in a lot of work and effort to put this conference together, as well as the Department of Social Services and FACT, Family and Action Care team have all joined together to put this conference together. So this year we are referring it as the Lemon Year, leadership, education, motivation, opportunity, and negotiation. So those are the topics that we're going to be talking about. Our first day, we are talking about leadership. But before we jump right in, I want to thank some of our sponsors. So we have a great app. I encourage you guys to download the app if you guys have not done that quite yet. And the reason that we have that app is one of our great sponsors, the Missouri Coalition of Recovery and Support Providers. They've sponsored our app as well as our website. Another great sponsor is Mission Gate Ministries for sponsoring the first week of these sessions. So Mission Gate continues to support us year after year, and they also do a great job of providing some aftercare services to our justice involved. So to go ahead and, again, there's our app. And then our second one, again, Mission Gate. So thank you guys so much for sponsoring. And to move us right in to start the day, nobody better to start us off on our leadership day is a director of the Department of Corrections, Director Ann Preside.
Thank you, Annie. It is wonderful to start this week with so many of you tuning into this. You know, reentry is one of those things that is an up and coming topic, even more so. You would think that we've been talking about reentry for years, and I can tell you on the national level, we are really looking to expand not just the preparation we do inside our institutions to get people ready to come into the community, but sustainment occurs in the community. So we're really beginning to talk more about what does ongoing support and service look like in the community, which is what Arches and FACT and so many of our partners with social services have done for us for years. But there has to be a real recognition about what is it that we need in our communities as we begin to think about ongoing supports for those people coming out of prison and the people that are under probation, supervision, and parole. It needs to be a much longer process for these folks coming out. I will tell you, because I was looking back through notes to find out, okay, what should I be saying this morning? And as I looked through my notes over the last few years, the message is still the same. It's about workforce development and infrastructure, two of the governor's continued top priorities. And that's what we're about. But even more so than finding people jobs, and I've said this year after year, and I just firmly believe it, more so than finding people jobs, we've got to find the additional supports. So we have got to start reaching out to those housing authorities and helping them understand we need you to have some outcomes and some statistics about how much housing, what percentage of your housing is available for the criminal justice involved individual. Physical health, you know, what are the providers providing for this population as well? Mental health, behavioral health, those are always concerns that we need. Daycare services, transportation, all the things that people need for that constant wraparound. I'm literally pulling my arms like this right now. It's just, how do we envelop those people into good social supports so that they have an opportunity to be successful? I can tell you that what I have learned in my last few months, even my last year of being in and out of prison, I've been talking to more and more of our population when I've been there. And what I've realized, and I want my probation parole staff to hear this, and my prison folks, case managers, everybody working inside our institutions, because I think we take these people for granted. What I have learned over this time is that being in prison is hard. It is really challenging because these individuals, they want more than what we're able to offer at some of our institutions. They may want programming that's not necessarily available. So they have to be transferred to another location to be able to achieve what it is they're after. Well, they may not be able to be transferred as quickly as they want. And when they get to that institution, can they get in that program? So that's one area that's difficult. I see people who've achieved so much while they've been incarcerated, but when they get out, they feel like they need to begin all over again. And if I had known 30 years ago when I was a probation parole officer what I know now, I think I would have given the people who came out a lot more credit for what they had accomplished. Because not only is being in prison hard, but being successful in prison is even more challenging. And on the outside, we need to encourage those people to talk about what did they do, what did they accomplish, what that meant, and then how that translates into their success in the community today. I just think that we've taken for granted the supports and the lifestyle that we have and how we've learned to adjust to the changing society. These are people that society has changed and they've not been able to keep up because they've been incarcerated. Here in Missouri, we release people after 10, 12, 15 years, even after 5 years. And a lot has changed in our communities over 5 years. And think about it even more. And yes, they want to be successful. They think they know what that means, but we on the outside, we're the ones who have the ability to help them truly understand what success means. So I am very excited to be here this morning. I plan to keep spreading this message to every group I go in front of, whether it's a group of correctional officers, whether it's a group of probation officers. It's something that we all need to be thinking about. And I'm really focused on trying to find the success stories because we routinely deal with the failures and those that are struggling and suffering and having challenges. That's who we see more frequently than those that are successful. I want to know, where are all the successes? Because I need my community supervision staff to see the successes and that the work that they're doing is paying off. I need our case managers, our rec officers, I need our correctional officers inside our institutions to see that the work they did on the inside to help get these folks ready for the outside is paying off. So to me, we're all in this together. We can't do any of this work without each other, without our partners in social services who help provide the supports necessary, the driver's license, the Medicare, the veteran services, all of the things that these guys need, birth certificates, everything that they need to have a packet ready to go into the workforce today, connecting them to employers. All of that is important, but if we don't have those wraparound services and help these individuals realize that it's a package deal, then all the work we're doing in bits and pieces is for nothing. So I appreciate the work that the folks at Arches, the folks with FACT, the folks with social services, my folks in the Department of Corrections. Everything you do is critical to the success for our communities. Because remember, we're about improving lives for safer communities. And these guys who are coming out, these ladies who are coming out, they're part of our communities, and we want them to be a positive contributor as well. But they need our help, and that's what we're going to do. So thank you so much for everyone who's going to be here. Please pay attention to all the work that's gone into this. Tune in to the subsequent days. I love the theme of this. I'll be honest, when I first saw lemon, I thought, okay, so it has been a challenging year, but to make lemonade out of lemons, that's what we do best in this work. And that's what people need us to do. So please focus on good leadership. It's up to everybody on this call to take it back to your workplace and keep good leadership happening. It's about education and how we continue to educate not only the people we work with, but also the people that are in our institutions. I believe they can be leaders, but it's also about educating the people we work around and them understanding their value and their mission. Motivation, we can never out-motivate ourselves. We all need additional motivation. It's just what keeps us coming back to the workplace every day. So be one of those good motivators. Opportunity, that's what we do. We are the land of opportunity, and we have the ability to create opportunities for people. Remember, we can't make them change. We can't make them participate. We can't make them take advantage, but we can provide all the opportunity in the world for these people to be able to be the best they can. And then negotiation. And I thought that one was really interesting because we can collaborate all we can, but we also got to be able to negotiate because everybody comes to the table with their plan, what they think they should be doing. But really it's negotiation that makes all the collaborations we do together successful. So I think they have a great plan laid out. I hope you participate in as many of the events as you can, the many days they have planned out. And I just wish you to have a great reentry conference. I'm looking forward to the time when we can all get back together safely. So have a great conference. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Annie Herman, who is our new reentry coordinator. She is also an assistant director for the Division of Offender Rehab Programs and Services. So we're excited to have her in this role. And I'd also like to welcome Heather Cullen, who is one of our new reentry coordinators with Marty Myers. We've had some turnover and some changes in our reentry section, but it is as strong as ever. And I know they're doing great work and they're good partners with all of you. So thank you to Annie and Marty and Heather. And I look forward to you all having a great conference. So thank you so much. And Marty, I don't know if there are any questions for me or anything before Annie moves on to the next group.
There's not.
I think there aren't.
Excellent.
No.
Well, thank you. Y'all
Everybody's
have a
still
great
in.
one. And
Thank
Annie,
you.
keep it rolling.
All right, thank you so much. Well, thank you, Director Precise, on behalf of our reentry team. So we are adding some more team members to the team. We've recently joined our education team, so we're really excited for the future and being under the Division of Offender Rehabilitation. So again, thank you so much, Director Precise, for starting us off. We will go ahead and start with our first speaker of the day that's going to talk about leading in today's environment. So that is Charlie Blackmon, and he is from the Cardin Group. So Mr. Blackmon graduated with a Bachelor of Arts from Mississippi College in 1968, and he received his Master's of Divinity from New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary in 1975. He has spent 20 years in public speaking, training volunteers, counseling, and ministry. From 1995 to 2009, Charles focused on fundraising by leading capital campaigns for more than 125 churches, which totaled over $250 million. In 2009, Charles became a training and development specialist. He uses his sense of humor, his high energy level to train and motivate clients to achieve company objectives. His effectiveness as a trainer is the result of his genuine appreciation for others and his desire to see them succeed. So we are very lucky to have his sense of humor and high energy start us off for today. So we will go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Blackmon.
Is that better? Can you hear me now, Annie?
Yes, sir. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Fantastic. All right, let's jump right in. I'm not going to talk about myself except to say good morning to Ann Presythe. It's a delight. Great to hear you. Let's jump right into leadership by design. And let me get out of my comfort zone right here and begin to talk to you. We're going to talk about comfort zones in a few minutes, but let's talk about what leadership by design means. Leadership by design simply means you are, leadership by design simply means that you're intentional about being a leader. And sometimes people are placed in positions of leadership. They're not exactly sure how they got there, and so they're not sure about where they're headed. One of the things that you must do as a leader is to be intentional about the people that you're leading. That's one of the things that I enjoy about working with people. I'm not going to say to you, I wish that we were together in person. This is a brand new experience for me. But I'm assuming that you're listening. And because of that assumption, I want you to grab a pen, a piece, or several pieces of paper and jot down some key insights that you can take with you today so that you can improve your effectiveness and that you can move forward not only today, but you can move forward in leadership. Chad Carden, a young man that I worked with, says, Charlie, I want to be sure that each day I'm moving forward, whether it's an inch or whether it's a mile. Let's move right on and talk about the goals for today. We want to have fun. If we were all together in a large room, we'd probably have more fun with one another. But you can have fun right where you are with your laptop, your desktop, your iPad, whatever you're using. We can have a good time together. We also want to be relevant. If we have fun and there's nothing that you take away, Ann might say, did you have a good time on the webinar? Yeah, we loved Charlie. He was a good guy. He was exciting. He was energetic. Did you learn anything? Well, no, not really. Well, then that's been a total bust. So we also want to be real and relevant. Also want to disrupt your thought process. Let's drill down on this for just a moment. Charlie, what do you mean drill down on our thought process? Chad did some research. I did some research as well. And we have between us figured out that the average human has about 6,200 to 12,000 thoughts every day. Guess what? 95% of those are the same thoughts that we have had yesterday. I want to challenge your thought process today. How? Charlie, how do you want me to challenge my own thought process? I want you to think ahead and think about how can this help me right now, right where I am. If you do that, then that's one of the things that I would, that's one success that I would see today. There are 5 reasons that teams don't advance. And if you're not advancing, what are you doing? You're staying still. You're not moving anywhere. So there are 5 reasons that teams do not advance. Number one is unskilled leader. Charlie, what do you mean by the term an unskilled leader? Well, it's a leader that doesn't have any skill. I hope you got a chuckle out of that, because you never define something by using the same word. An unskilled leader is a person that doesn't have the tools to lead effectively. Second reason that teams don't advance, that there's no clear vision. Where there is no clear vision, team will perish, or it will wallow in a quagmire of where it's been. It will not move forward. The team might remain a team, but they really won't accomplish what the leader wants them to accomplish. The third is inadequate communication. Inadequate communication. Sometimes presenters assume that people know the terms that we're using. The definition that I found from Webster means this: inadequate is lacking quality or quantity desired, lacking the quality or the quantity desired. So inadequate communication, leaders are not communicating effectively, and or they're not communicating enough. Next, we have a lack of alignment. The team is not sure about the steps that we're taking in order to achieve our desired results. If there's no alignment on the team, how can you hope as a leader to accomplish what you're seeking to accomplish? And then one of my, I would say it's my favorites, but one of my pet peeves, I suppose, is that the team is not asked for input. This is a flaw, and this is another reason that teams don't advance. If you're not asked to help set some of the goals, how involved are you going to be? In another framework, in another, not another lifetime, because this is the only life that I have, but in a different vocation, I was tasked with the responsibility of raising funds for nonprofits, which included churches. The company that I worked for developed a program and a process whereby we would get a lot of people in that organization involved with some sort of task. And the task was clearly defined. The task might be as simple as asking people to make 10 phone calls to other people that they knew in the organization. But what we knew was, if we could get their involvement, that involvement would equal ownership, and eventually those people and others like them would write a check to that organization. They would make a commitment because they had invested their time. They were willing to invest their money. Let's talk about leadership and relationships. And by the way, if you have a pen or pencil, strike out that S in leadership. It should be leadership and relationships. And I'm painfully aware of that. So leadership and relationships. The first thing that I would look at in terms of leadership and developing a strong working relationship is this: it's trust. Trust is defined as a firm belief in the reliability of somebody else. It's a firm belief in the reliability of somebody else. In late November 2009, I walked into a hotel, large hotel in Dallas, Texas. I reside in Houston. Walked into a room with a young man who was to become my friend, my coworker, my boss, whatever hat you want to put on Chad Carden. I walked into a room with him. I'd never seen him in my life. I listened to him speak for about an hour. We had a break. I left the room and I took my cell phone and I called my wife and I said, I want you to know that I've just met one of the sharpest young men I have met in the last 25 years. And she said, tell me more about this. As I got to know him, not just that day, but as I've gotten to know Chad for what's that, I guess 12 years now, I have also respected him. Respect him. Respect simply means a deep admiration for somebody because of their abilities as well as their accomplishments. That person, for me, the person that I trust and respect, has to be worthy of that trust. Focus on yourself, be selfish for just a minute. Say to yourself, ask yourself the question, am I somebody that my team trusts? Am I someone that my team respects? And am I someone that has developed rapport with them? Rapport is defined as friendly, harmonious relationship because of agreement and mutual understanding. If you realize that rapport is not something that other people need to develop with you, but you as a leader want to develop with your team, as they see that and as they trust and respect you, there will be mutual agreement and mutual understanding. If there is not, Charlie, we live in an imperfect world. I'm painfully aware of that. But if we have a friendly, harmonious relationship, we can disagree about some of the nitty gritty in terms of what we do on a daily basis. And if we allow disagreement within the team, and I'm not talking about what's the term that I want to use? I'm not talking about a game where there are no rules and there are no referees. I'm talking about your team knowing that they can disagree with you agreeably, and then we can come to where we want to go. And yes, there are times the leader has to say, I understand what you're saying. I understand your point of disagreement. However, we do have these clearly defined goals, and we're going to move toward those. And a leader can say that in several different ways. A leader can say that so that they pull the team along with them. All right, pull that team along with them, or they can say, it's my way or the highway. If you pull your team along with you, you're going to continue to build that trust, respect, and rapport. If you say it's my way or the highway, that's when people begin to dig their heels in. Pardon me while I get a sip of water. Thanks so much for your patience with that. Then last of all, and we'll drill down on clarity, alignment, and purpose in a couple of slides. I'll be honest with you. There are a couple of things that scare me to death. One, I've never done this. I've never jumped out of a perfectly good airplane. I don't intend to at my age. I think I'd have a heart attack if I jumped out of an airplane. It's something that I would not do. So that's one comfort zone that I'm going to stay in. If you can see my cursor, I'm going to stay up there. I'm not going to be right there. But then I thought about comfort zones personally. We all have them. They're places that we feel at ease. And that's why we continue to do the same things that we did yesterday and yet expect different results. That's not going to happen. Thinking the same things the same way will not bring about change. It will not help us get to where we want to be. So I started to use an illustration of learning to drive a stick shift, but I've got a much better plan. One of my comfort zones is driving a car. I learned to drive a stick shift, but I'm teaching my 15-year-old granddaughter. I taught all three of my daughters to drive. Now I'm teaching my 15-year-old granddaughter to drive. We went across the street from where I live into a school parking lot on a Saturday morning. There was not another car there. I drove around the parking lot. I pulled into a parking space. We talked about starting the car. We talked about shifting, looking in our mirrors, getting those adjusted, having our seat, all the preliminaries. And so I explained all of that to her. So in terms of explaining it, I said, do you understand? Yes, Pawpaw, I understand. Well, I finally had to turn the car off, open my door, get out of the driver's seat. She got out of the passenger seat, and we walked around the car and we changed places. When I sat down in that seat and she sat down and started the car, I didn't freak out, okay? I didn't want to scare her, but I thought to myself, I'm not in control of this deal anymore. She is in total control. And if we wreck my old 2010 Toyota Camry, so be it. But she began very slowly. And the more she drove around that parking lot, sometimes doing a good job, sometimes not cutting the wheel fast enough. We made mid-course corrections. But the only way that she was going to learn how to drive was by me getting out of my comfort zone, out of the driver's seat, and allowing her to take charge there. Also, let me share another fear with you. One of the fears that I had this morning was that I knew how to click on to my Zoom meeting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Technology is not my comfort zone. So I'm practicing what I'm preaching to you this very day. If you will challenge yourself, get out of your comfort zone, an inch or a few feet, that's when growth is going to occur. Charlie, is this going to be painless? I don't think so. All right. Because I've tried it over and over again. It is sometimes painful to get out of that comfort zone, but I'll guarantee you it will be worth it. It will be worth it in what you do. It'll be worth it in your personal life in terms of your own personal growth. Having beat that horse enough, let's move on. How are we going to impact others? The first thing we want to do is to eliminate our narrative. There we go. Thanks. And my mouse is a little bit delayed there. How are we going to impact others? We'll eliminate your narrative. All right. Eliminate your narrative. Challenge your own thought process. If you're thinking the same thoughts you thought yesterday, and 95% of those thoughts are the same, get out of the box and don't jumble up your narrative, but quit thinking a lot of those thoughts that we had yesterday are negative. So challenge yourself to disrupt your own process. Remember the platinum rule as well. The platinum rule simply says, treat others as they want to be treated. I know hundreds of us know the golden rule. Platinum rule says, treat others as they want to be treated. Find out the way that your team members like for you to communicate with them. And that doesn't mean that the cart is before the horse. It simply means that you're listening to the way that they want to be communicated with. Some people prefer an email. I prefer face-to-face communication. It depends on your leadership style, but really remember, in terms of your team members, remember to communicate with them in the way that they would like to be communicated with. And then change your lens, change your expectations. Someone once said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I don't know how many of you ever watch movies for the second time. One of my favorite pastimes. And I've been doing that since I was a younger guy, now a much older guy. But I'd seen the movie, and maybe you've seen the movie Christmas Vacation. I laugh every time at the same places, and I never get tired of doing it. But I watched that. It took me 5 times seeing that movie to see that when Chevy Chase and Randy Quaid are walking through that grocery store, I didn't see this the first 4 times. Chevy Chase puts a little container of light bulbs down on one of the packages, and Randy Quaid follows that up with a 40-pound bag of Old Roy dog food. That's something I just didn't see. I had not seen it before, but after I'd seen the movie 4 or 5 times, and I confess, one of my daughters had to point that out to me. But it gave me another reason. It gave me another reason to laugh. So eliminate your narrative. Remember the platinum rule and change your lens and your expectations. People and results start with focus. This is where we want to drill down into clarity, alignment, and focus. In terms of your team and yourself, regardless of the size of the team, 15, 3, 5, whatever it is, you've got to have clarity around the goals and the expectations. Jim Collins wrote a book called Good to Great. And in that, he uses the analogy of a bus. And first of all, he says, where's the bus going? You know, where is this bus going? Do you want to be on the bus? Let's say where the bus is going to Chicago. You might be a great person, but you don't want to go to Chicago. You prefer to go to San Diego. So there's got to be clarity in terms of goals and expectations. Then there must be alignment. There's got to be alignment. Do I agree with the goals as a team member? Am I on the right bus? Am I on the wrong bus? You might be on the right bus, but be in the wrong seat. You might want to be by the window and look at the scenery as you drive to Chicago. You might feel more comfortable in an aisle seat because you're thinking, what if something happens? I want to be able to get into the aisle and get off the bus. So there's clarity, alignment, and then there is purpose. And the reason there we go, that's a little bit quicker. Clarity, alignment, and purpose. What are we trying to achieve? Do I agree with the goals? Is this where I want to head? Do I want to be on the bus to Chicago? And then in terms of purpose and impact, what are we going to do once we get to Chicago? Are we going to go to Marshall Fields? Are we going to go out by the lakefront? Are we going to Museum of Natural Science? What are we going to do once we get to Chicago? And then fourth of all is communication. Communication. Communication, to be effective, you've got to know what you're talking about, and you've got to know why you're talking about. If you're not clear as a leader with your clarity, alignment, and purpose, how in the world are you going to communicate that to the people on your team? Let's move right along to the value premise. Value premise simply says, how can your people know that they are valued as a leader? And I don't know if this is on your radar screen or not, but if you'll take the time to work this value premise in, and you don't have to sit down with somebody and say, you know, I'm going to work the value premise with you and go through these 3 steps. But in sitting down with your team members individually, help them to see what it is that they really do. Sometimes people are not totally clear about what it is that they really do. Drill down and help them see that. The second is, I think, at least as important, if not more important. Workers, myself included, sometimes lose sight of who is impacted by our work. Help your teammate, help the person that you're leading to see who is impacted by their work. And you get out of the box in terms of your own thinking. Help them to see that it's like dropping a pebble in a pond. Sometimes we are so laser focused on one aspect of what we're doing. We don't see the ripples in the pond that occur because that pebble has been dropped. There are concentric circles moving outward from that pebble, and we don't often see who all is impacted by our work. You're working with clients. You might say, my client is the only person that's really impacted by my work. I would respectfully disagree. Not only is your client affected or impacted by what you're doing, but your client's family, friends of family, all those people are impacted. Other people in the workplace. And sometimes all it takes is for a leader to ask the question, who's impacted by your work, and help them drill down in terms of who is impacted. And then for the people who are impacted, how do they benefit? How do they benefit from the work that you're doing? Too often, we become so focused on the task at hand, we don't realize the impact that we're having on other people. And not just for the day, but also impacting them for the rest of their lives. One little tidbit that they might pick up from you today, they will take and use to their benefit for the rest of their lives. You might never know, or you might never see the tremendous impact that you have on other people. And most people don't take the time to tell leaders, I really want to thank you for doing that. I had a guy in an organization that that I was a minister for about 20 years. After I'd been at this particular place of work for about 6 months, this guy came in and sat down. He was a leader in the church that I was working with. He sat down with me and he said, how are you doing? I said, fine, close the door. And I said it just like that. And then I listened to what I said. And I said, pardon me. I said, I didn't mean that. He said, yes, I think you did. And then I was stunned. So I sat down in my chair. He sat down. He said, this conversation is going to ruin our relationship. And I was determined in my own mind that I'm bulldog enough to say, no, this is not going to ruin our relationship. For the next 20 minutes, he told me, I'm so embarrassed to use the term arrogant, but I've got to do it because that's what he said. He said, you're an arrogant person. You do this and this and this, and you don't realize what you're doing in terms of your relationships with other people. It was devastating because I had no idea that was the impact that I was having on those people and the organization that I was trying to lead. It was a painful conversation. I'm here to tell you, and I'm reliving it right now. But because of that painful conversation, I did some pretty decent work at that church in the next 5.5 years. That would never have happened if that man had not sat down and talked with me about what I was doing. All right, we're moving to the next slide. Here we go. Keep meetings. A simple acronym or acrostic, whichever you prefer. Those meetings can be formal. Let's sit down and chat in your office. That's less threatening. If it needs to be more formal, sit down in your office or wherever. Or if it's informal, if it's in the hall, that's fine too. It might be a 2-minute checkup. How are things going? How are things going with you? How are they really going? Let's take the mask off. What's going on with you? What's going on in the workplace? You okay with your family? And then you see the across the H for how. Then the expectations. expectations that we have of one another. Many times as a leader, I have been very willing to talk about my expectations for my team members, but there was a blind spot. I didn't do it. I didn't do it intentionally. There was simply a blind spot because I thought everything was driven top down. What are your expectations of me as a leader? I want to tell you something else about that. Got to get out of your comfort zone if you're going to ask someone else what their expectations they have you. Why is that out of the comfort zone? Because they might say something that's totally off the wall that you've never thought about before. And so our some of our reactions, or one of our first reaction, is fight or flight, defend what I've been doing, or else flee from the situation. Well, I did that because, and we begin to make excuses. If we're going to be effective leaders, we've got to listen to what other people's expectations are of us, and we've got to communicate effectively our expectations of them. There's also got to be accountability and appreciation. Been my experience that many leaders are heavy on the accountability phase of this, but they fall a little bit short of appreciation. Don't worry, don't be afraid to tell people what an excellent job they're doing if they're doing. Now, if they're not doing a great job, and you say, man, you're really doing a great job, then you can just become a liar, because and that person knows that they're not doing a great job. But when people are doing a great job, show some appreciation. And you can do that without being fake, false, or anything like that. People are starved for genuine appreciation. And if you are in the process, if you're in the habit of appreciating your people when they need it and when they deserve it, they will leave no stone unturned in helping you accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish as a team. And then teamwork. The cliche is teamwork makes the dream work. I don't know who came up with that. I don't know why I said it at this point. Take a minute and laugh at your presenter, okay? But in terms of those heat meetings, both of you leave that meeting energized, engaged, and maybe excited, but for sure, leave that meeting energized and engaged. Even if things have not been going well, that's your opportunity as a leader to help this person see that what they're doing is valuable. And yes, we might make a couple of mid-course corrections, but I'll guarantee you that person will leave energized, engaged, and perhaps even excited. We're moving to our next slide now. The high priority items. Where is your focus? Where's your focus as a leader? Things will drive production. Are you productive each day, or are you busy? Someone, I would tell you who this quote was by, but someone once said, many times we are driven by the tyranny of the urgent. And so instead of keeping our focus with our team broader, we just get lost in the busyness of doing what we're doing. What should you be doing today? Tomorrow is a gift that you may or may not receive. And I'm not a fatalist. I'm an optimist. But what should you be doing today? Tomorrow might never come for me. Let's take it off of your plate. I'm a lot older than you guys, so tomorrow might not come for me. I've got a history of heart problems. But you know what? That would be quite all right with me, because I also know my destination. What should you be doing today? Not what did you do yesterday, but what should you be doing today to help your team and to help yourself move along? Chad Carden has said this many times. He said, Charlie, I always want to be moving forward, whether it's an inch and a mile. I heard him say that 11 years ago, and I have never forgotten it. It has stuck with me. Let that stick with you. What's your next best action? Why? Sometimes I think I'm not a great planner. That's just a confession for you. I want to be transparent with you. I'm not the greatest planner in the world. So I'll make a list, a to-do list, but I might do the fifth thing first. What's your next best action? And the important question there is why. What's your next best action right now and why? Let's come in for a landing here. I want to move to my next slide if I can do that. There we go. Think about the future. Little things matter. Just a very simple illustration, but it's not stupid. Yesterday, because of my son-in-law's work schedule, he asked me to get his oil changed and that inspection sticker done. Took it down. They did a masterful job. Little things matter. I got home and he calls me Papa. He said, Papa, they didn't reset the little deal that tells you when you need the next oil change. I said, you're right. Maybe we can do that later. And then he said, neither did they put that little sticker up on the windshield. I said, give me your keys. I took it right back down, and little things matter. Talked with a gentleman who did the oil change. He was so apologetic. I had an opportunity to build a stronger relationship there. And that's exactly what I chose to do. He started apologizing. I said, don't worry about that. You're taking care of it right now. I appreciate the good work that you did. These are just a couple of things. Did it take another hour out of my day? Yes, it did. Did it matter? No. But those little things, had he done that at first, I would have been doing something else. Then we have a defined destination. If we do not know what our destination is, we're certainly not going to get there. Duh, Shirley. No referees equal frustration. Chad and I talked about this in terms of basketball and football. Put it on a basketball court. And you don't have any referees. If you don't have any referees, you begin to play the game. People are unsure of whether the guy stepped on the foul line when he's shooting a free throw. They don't know whether he threw the pass from out of bounds or had his foot on the line again and threw the pass from inbounds. That's a basketball illustration. But if you don't have any referees and clear-cut rules, that's going to end up in frustration for your team. Then accountability. Everybody needs it. Everybody needs it. Chad needs it. I need it. You need it. As we are accountable to one another, if you're as accountable to your team as you want them to be to you, they will, forgive me for this illustration, they would charge hell with a water pistol because they realize that you're holding yourself accountable as well as you holding them accountable. And they have the freedom to hold you accountable as well because you give them that. Kanai simply means constant and never-ending improvement. That's where my friend Chad says, Charlie, I want to move forward, whether it's an inch and a mile. And believe me, I've never seen him move forward an inch. It's usually between the half and the 3/4 mile mark. Find value. Find value. Everybody has to understand their value in the organization. If you have that, if you have defined value within your organization, people are not unclear. Okay, they're not unclear about what they're supposed to be doing. They're also very clear on the way that you value them. Results don't drive people. People drive results. And then last of all, if you're good to your people, most of the time you're going to be successful. Charlie, why do you say most of the time? The reason I say most of the time is there are some people, regardless of your excellent leadership skill, are not going to come along with you. And it's at that point that you need to help them get to the place that they need to be, because it's evident that they don't want to be on your team, or if they're on your team, they're simply there to draw a paycheck or whatever, and they're not really interested in being a successful member of the team. So let's move to our next slide. Takeaways. I want you to think, write, and share. Don't worry about a hodgepodge of insights that you've gained, hopefully you've gained from today. Think about one or two key insights. Then what do you need to accomplish the things that you've learned, the one or two things that you need, the tools that you need, tools from your toolbox. What do you need to accomplish those one or two things? Charlie, why do you say just one or two things, one or two takeaways from today's session? Because you can't focus on 3, 4, or 5, or 10. That's an exercise in futility. Believe me, I've tried it. Focus on one or two key insights from today, and I'll guarantee you, you will be a stronger leader. And right alongside that, what good is it to be a strong leader if you don't have a strong team? Don't focus so much on yourself, but help those other people. Help pull them along. What's next? What is the next step for you? That's something that you've got to answer that I can't answer for you. I know what's next for me. I'm gonna regroup and think about what I did right, what I could have done better with you today. It's interesting to be with you in this format. I prefer being with people in person, but I have sensed just because of comments, etc. I've sensed that some of you are listening, and I'm really happy for that. Our last slide is simply thank you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for engaging. And I'm making a lot of assumptions there, but I want to thank you for being engaged. I really do appreciate that. This is not pie in the sky, but I really do hope that you have a great day wherever you are, in your home, in your office, with a group of people, by yourself. I really do hope that this has been beneficial for you and not just something else you can check off your to-do list. Okay. Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you. Thank you, Annie.
Thank you so much, Charlie. Everybody really appreciated your presentation, and we do have a couple questions for you.
Okay. Are they easy or hard?
Well, I think they're okay. So I think
Just
you're getting
kidding.
everybody warmed up. So I think they're all right. So the first question is from one of our prisons, our Southeast Correctional Center in Charleston, Missouri. So the question is, during times of staff shortages, how should newer supervisors attempt to motivate their staff to believe in themselves and their team to help gain trust and best help with their job performance, kind of in an environment where things are stressful because we are short-staffed, but trying to give them the hope that things will get better?
Okay. The way that I would respond to that is, I think it should be very obvious. It's obvious to me. Don't try to pretend that situation doesn't exist. You understand what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Don't pretend the situation doesn't exist. Pats on the back, okay, or like that. Pats on the back are good, but we've got to drill deeper than that. Empathy. One of the things that I found about empathy, empathizing with somebody else, is extremely helpful. A lot of times people don't want you to fix something. They want you to know the struggle that they're going through.
Mhm.
And Annie, the only thing that I could say there, look people in the eye. Don't look aside or anywhere else. Look them in the eye and say, I know we're short-staffed. I know this is tough. I realize this. And I'm asking you not to do the impossible, because by definition, you can't do it. I'm asking you to do the improbable. Things will get better, and then work to make things better as much as it's in your power to do. I apologize for the elongated answer, but that's what's coming out of me.
I think that's great. I think that's a great answer. We appreciate that. So another question, how do you help to establish an environment where team members feel comfortable giving their supervisors upward feedback?
Repeat that question.
So how do you help to establish an environment as a leader where your team members, your staff members feel comfortable giving you upward feedback, giving you that feedback as a supervisor?
Oh, that's easy. That's very easy. And this is the approach most people take. It's as simple. So if you've got your pen, jot this down. Don't listen to what other people say, and don't listen to their feedback. And then I'll guarantee you'll have a team that will never be cooperative with you. So one way to ensure that is let them know that you're a safe person. So many times leaders are perceived as being out to get us. Have you ever heard that term?
Mhm.
Leaders are out to get us. Instead of, and our whole society is this way. A lot of times, instead of you saying to one of your supervisors or to one of the people that you're supervising, what's right, what do we always say? What do we default to? Annie, you answer. Instead of saying what's right, what do we say? What's wrong?
Mhm.
That's our default position. If we are really comfortable with ourselves and who we are, and I don't mean that we've quit growing. We should always be growing. But if we're comfortable with who we are, let's receive the feedback. And if there's something we can do, then let's agree to make that change. And sometimes, unfortunately, that means eating a small or a large slice of humble pie. I've had to do this in my many careers that I've had on this earth for 76 years. Does that help or not? Or is that muddy?
No, most definitely. That's great. Thank you. Okay, another question. How important is delegation in leadership and setting clear and concise expectations for tasks?
Oh, for how important is delegation in leadership? Oh, that's not important at all. A good leader should always do everything themselves. Wrong. That's not correct. And that's how you teach other people to lead. It's called shared experiences, and it's called shared leadership. But just like I got out of the driver's seat the other day with Plum, that's her name, 15-year-old granddaughter whom I love dearly, I had to get out of the driver's seat and let her make a few mistakes. And I had to reel in, or I had to expand my comfort zone. That's what I had to do. So I hope, does that help?
Yes, very much so. Okay, just a couple more. So hopefully you said they're not too hard yet.
Annie,
yes.
one more thing.
Uh-huh.
Communication to be effective. It can never be just top-down driven. I heard Ann speak earlier, and I know her personally, and she is so open to communicating up and down the line, and I know what I'm talking about there of experience. Thank you. Next question.
So this is somewhat on communication as well. Do you think surveys are an effective form of communication from all levels within organizations? Is there a more reliable measure other than surveys for honest feedback?
I'm thinking back to some of the surveys that Chad and I do with people. I think surveys are a pretty good way, especially if people's names aren't on them. Have you ever noticed it's easier to get feedback when you don't have to affix your name? And the fear of the leader there is that they're going to get some feedback that they're not comfortable with. And what are we going to do about that? But in working with thousands of people with Chad Carden and the Carden Group, most people are not that way, Annie. Most people, when they give honest feedback, you as a leader You've got to step out of your comfort zone as a leader and be open to that and deal with it. And listen, if you've blown it, as I have from time to time, say it. People already know it. Pull the curtain back and let them see who the Wizard of Oz is. And he's not really a Wizard of Oz. He's this old man with glasses and graying hair or whatever, because people appreciate transparent leadership. I get emotional about that. People really do appreciate transparent leadership.
They most definitely do. Thank you so much for that. Okay, the last one we have is about our justice involved individuals. So how do you personally feel about hiring people for leadership positions that have been previously incarcerated?
You've asked me a hard question, okay?
That's the last one. We saved the hardest for last.
That's okay, because it's challenging me to think. Repeat the question.
So how do you feel about hiring people for leadership positions that have been formally incarcerated?
Well, I would go to one of the greatest leaders of all time, who was incarcerated himself. And some of his followers were incarcerated. And that never, what's the term I'm searching for? That never negated their possibilities for leadership going forward. And so I would say, and I'm not going to even put any parenthetical marks around this, okay? No quotation marks. I would simply say, if we really believe that we can rehabilitate people, and I broke that down on purpose, if we really believe that we can rehabilitate people and then don't give them an opportunity to exercise their leadership skills, then all we're doing, it's just an exercise in futility, and we're fooling ourselves as leaders, and we're trying to pull the wool over their eyes. Does that make any sense?
It makes perfect sense. So thank you very much. And thank you again for starting the conference off so well. We appreciate it. Yeah, and I think those are all the questions that we have for you.
Thank you so much. I had a little bit of fear and trepidation going in. I'm not a technology whiz, et cetera, but because of you and Tiffany and others, this has made my responsibility so much easier. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. See ya.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to transition into a break, but first we have a video from First Step, our first call, and then we will start that video and we will be back at 10:20.
Treatment, individual counseling, mental health services, job referrals, the reentry advocate. We provide bus passes for them. We provide clothing for them, referrals for job training. Very holistic approach. Because understanding that you're not just supporting the person just in one area, but in order for a person to become successful, you have to attack them holistically, every area of their life. And coming out of the penal system, from coming out of jail, a lot of people don't have support. So this is very important for them to know that I have the support that I need, that you're not just going to say, go to treatment, and then I get out of treatment, and then I don't have that other support.
All right, we are back from our break and we're going to move into our second speaker of the morning. So Dr. Rodrick Nunn, he is the head of education and employment for Concordance Academy of Leadership. And today he is going to talk to us about advancing reentry with a healing first approach. So a little bit about Dr. Nunn. He has previously worked for St. Louis Community College, serving as a president of the Forest Park campus and as vice chancellor for economic development and workforce solutions, where he developed and directed a number of talent and development programs connecting area companies with highly trained individuals from all walks of life. Before joining the college, Dr. Nunn directed the public workforce system for 3 governors, both in Missouri and Illinois. At Concordance, Dr. Nunn guides the work of several career educators and coaches and oversees Concordance Employment Agency, which directly employs justice-involved adults through strategic partnerships with local employers in retail, food service, and light industrial sector. Dr. Nunn also serves as an adjunct professor for the Doctors of Management program in his alma mater, the University of Maryland Global Campus. So I will turn it over to you, Dr. Nunn.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction, Annie, and welcome to all of you. The focus of my presentation is really going to be the holistic, integrated, and evidence-informed approach that we've taken in Concordance over the past 5-6 years to reduce reincarceration rates. And on a personal note, I just want to say, you heard the bio, as someone who has worked in the workforce development profession for over 2 decades. I kind of dibbled and dabbled in reentry work. I was a member of the Missouri reentry team. Our department was when it started up back in 2000, I think it was 2005 or so. I've really grown to love this work. Anybody who's working in this reentry space, I believe, is doing God's work, you know, and we just really want to say thank you for your service. So if you could put the first slide deck up, and I'll get going here.
If you want to share your own screen, or I can do that for you as well.
While they're working to get the slides going, I will talk a little bit about my motto. Okay, there we go. Advancing reentry with a healing first approach. So next slide, please. Next slide. So a little bit about the genesis of Concordance. Our CEO is Danny Ludeman. Danny is the former CEO of Wells Fargo Advisors, the brokerage arm of Wells Fargo, second largest brokerage firm in the country. When he retired in 2013, he learned about mass incarceration, and this fact that 77% of people who are released from prison get rearrested within 5 years. And Danny became really engaged and passionate about learning more about this and took a really deliberate approach. Danny is a highly networked individual and had some conversations with then Governor Nixon, the head of corrections at the time, some reentry experts from Washington University Brown School, the mayors, the chief of police, just several individuals, area civic leaders, and there was this fundamental question: with the right approach, with the right resources, with the right services, could we materially reduce reincarceration rates? And that group felt that we could. And so that led to some additional research conducted by the Brown School, where they looked globally at over 100,000 interventions that were determined to help the population. It was narrowed down from those that had a randomized control trial that had a positive result. And ultimately, out of that funnel dripped 32 interventions that became the Concordance reentry model. Next slide, please. Next slide. So when you look at the number of individuals incarcerated in this country, and you just think about father, mother, and kids, over 100 million individuals are impacted by mass incarceration. So there's 30 million felons. Of course, it has a big impact on people of color. You know, while Black and Hispanic Americans make up 29% of our population, they're overrepresented in the prison population. And so it's definitely a statistic that impacts our work and our work going forward. Next slide. So here's some facts about the problems that we are addressing. We start with this notion that 77% of individuals get rearrested after 5 years, within 5 years after they're released from prison. And most, if not all of our population suffers from horrific trauma, many of that beginning at an early age, but the ongoing trauma of growing up in neighborhoods that are impoverished and the things you see over time. So this chronic trauma, this acute trauma that repeats over and over again. If you know the research, you know that that results in some co-occurring conditions, including severe mental health, substance use disorder. It also shows up in academic performance in terms of poor performance in the classroom, as well as poor performance in the workplace. So, you know, when you're working with this population and you're aiming to do good work and to reduce recidivism, you got to account for a lot of different factors. Next slide, please. So our mission at Concordance is to dramatically reduce reincarceration rates by precisely executing our holistic, integrated, and evidence-informed model. Washington University, back in 2015 and 16, when the model was created, they gave us a goal of reducing reincarceration rates by 1/3. And we are really humbled and excited to report to all of our stakeholders that over the past 5 years, we have achieved a 45% reduction in recidivism rates among the population that we serve. And that has led us to exploring ways of expanding this model, not only here in Missouri, but all over the country. And I'll talk about that in just a little bit. Next slide, please. Next slide. So to describe the suite of services, the portfolio of services that we have 12 services operating under one roof. And you might think of 4 or 5 different types of agencies, not only co-located together, but really integrated operationally in the way that we do business. Next slide. And I'm going to go through kind of how the service sleeve looks and the things that we do here at Concordance. First of all, we believe that to serve the population in a way that works, that'll have a long-term impact, that we need to stabilize them and get folks on their healing journey. And of course, that begins with behavioral health and wellness because of all the things I talked about earlier in terms of all the issues that the population is facing. So we begin with cognitive behavioral therapy, and folks in this space obviously know what that means. But there are a lot of cognitive distortions that the population carries. And in our model, we seek to help them unlearn and relearn the way they think about the world, their family, the community, the world of work, how they make decisions, and to kind of help them retool those processes over time. We do address mental health within our model. We have licensed social workers and licensed professional counselors. We're very skilled in that way. And of course, our program, we do a lot of work in terms of addressing substance use treatment. 83% of the population has self-reported that they struggle with that. And those of you, the professionals in this space, you understand that the population on average is more unhealthy when you compare it to others. And so given the issues we've had with Medicaid expansion in Missouri, we've been working with the federally qualified healthcare centers to ensure that our participants have a medical home and they can get the necessary healthcare that they need. I oversee the education, job readiness, and employment portfolio. And a lot of my comments might be directed in that way because that's what I'm most familiar with. But I will tell you, we do not treat education and employment as a root cause kind of solution to the work. It's a very important part of the work, but we firmly believe that you got to get folks stabilized before you do this kind of work. And if you do this kind of work, your skill development is going to be more sticky. It's going to have more of a lasting impact. And folks are going to have a better chance of keeping a job once they get employed. And so in our skill development portfolio, we are addressing digital literacy, for example, digital fluency. We want our participants to understand how to efficiently and ethically use technology and the internet and all the things that go with that. We address workplace literacy and numeracy, and we use a tool called Work Keys. So in our pre-release program, our fine correctional educators at DOC are covering all of the sort of high set issues of high school equivalency. And so we come alongside and then we teach applied skills and what those things look like in the workplace. So, for example, instead of reading like abstract literature, we are modeling, teaching, and assessing our participants to be able to read workplace documents, standard operating procedures, and all of the things that you might encounter in the workplace. So that's a very important part of what we do. And then ultimately, when they come out and post-release, they're able to achieve a National Career Readiness Certificate, which speaks to their foundational skills and their ability to perform in the workplace. We teach some technical skills for entry level, things like safety and quality in the workplace. And then depending on which pathway you're in, for example, if you're in a food service pathway, we are teaching some basic food handling and food safety, food preparation techniques. Part of our secret sauce is that our employment is in-house. And as a condition of employment under our Concordance employment agency, you have to complete programming here at Concordance. And I'll show you how that works in just a bit in terms of how it's sequenced. But the employment agency is the connector between all of the services that are important for one's well-being, ongoing well-being in terms of staying on the healing journey. And so, as the employer of record, there are things that we can do in partnership with our company partners, our hiring partners, to make sure folks are taking the programming in a very serious way. We have researched felon-friendly industries where we can work with industry partners to create a welcoming environment for the entry-level job. And so we're in retail, food service, and what we call light industrial, which is warehousing, logistics, and some manufacturing in our program. And we're just thrilled with what's been happening in the labor market in terms of we've seen some wage growth. All of our participants are making 16, 15, 14 bucks an hour, are in really high demand with what's happening in the current labor market with employers. So in the communities and life skills in the upper right-hand corner of the service, you'll see housing, legal services, family reunification, community, and spiritual support. I'll just make a few points about that. So with housing, we're not a housing first organization. We're not a skills first organization. We're not a jobs first organization. We are a healing first organization. So initially back in 2016, when we first started, we were providing furnished apartments for participants when they got out of prison. We learned the hard way. That didn't work so well. They were not ready for that responsibility, and it was pretty much a disaster. And so we took our housing assets and we put those later in our program. So our case managers do, everyone getting out of prison, of course, has a home plan. And for those individuals who need something other than what was planned, because things tend, for some things, the situation can degrade a little bit. We'll work with certain organizations in the community to make sure folks are stabilized in their housing. But what we do is when individuals move to full-time employment in our model, have demonstrated that they can hold a job and maintain their sobriety, we can introduce them to some of our housing partnerships where folks will rent an affordable unit to them with no background check, no credit check. And that's an important part of our model. We also have a partnership with Brian Cave, Leighton Paisner. If you're familiar with the St. Louis region and the 200 some odd municipalities and townships in St. Louis County, for example, you know that there are a lot of ordinance violations that individuals might be facing and warrants for their arrests when they release from prison. And so we have legal fellows that go inside of the prison and work with participants to understand all of this and clear those warrants prior to release. It's nothing like getting out of prison and then getting picked up by another jurisdiction for some kind of a warrant. And these are not for new criminal violations, but some of the old pending warrants that are out there. I think we've cleared over 600 warrants since we've been operational. We certainly work to engage the family, to continue to build that support network around participants. And pre-COVID, we were doing lots of volunteer opportunities so folks can get out in the community and do things. And then finally, last but not least, spiritual support. You know, when you come to a Concordance graduation and you listen to those individuals who've completed our program, you will note that there's a lot of resilience and grit that they show. And I'm sure many of you see that in your clients. When you unpack that, oftentimes you find hope. And when you look a little bit deeper, you find a relationship to a higher power. So spiritual support is very important in our model. We have a chaplain on site who works with our participants. Next slide, please. So Concordance has a 18-month program. We begin 6 months pre-release and we continue for approximately 1 year post-release. We have very, very rigorous requirements, specific requirements for individuals to kind of move through our program. And I will show you how that sort of sequences out over time. But what's interesting to me as a workforce development higher education professional is that we did a little bit of math and we added up all the hours of participation between the time a participant starts programming and ends programming with Concordance. And it's over 555 hours. That's a lot of skill development, a lot of therapy, a lot of counseling, a lot of programming. That's more than most of us had for our baccalaureate degree programs. And so we're very proud of that. And the one thing that one of several things that our hiring partners love about our program is that we have this EAP wraparound type of support, and that every participant has a licensed therapist, case manager, and career coach assigned to them for the duration of the healing journey and through employment. So that works really well. So the next slide, you'll see exactly how the sequence of services lay out. And I'm going to quickly move through these because it can take an hour to talk through these, and I want to make sure we have some time for questions. So you see phase one, the interview phase. So we have a wonderful, wonderful partnership with Annie and her team at the Missouri Department of Corrections. It's just been a phenomenal journey with them. They've been good partners. They've been honest brokers. They've asked us tough questions. They help us to refine this program over the years. But it all starts with getting a list of offenders. And so in our program here in the St. Louis market, it's for individuals releasing to St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and St. Charles County. We do have a relationship with Illinois for a prison that releases to both St. Clair and Madison County. But we want to make sure that the list is reflective of the population releasing to the community. So a representative sample, that's important to us. We don't ever want to be accused of cherry picking or creaming or anything like that. So we take all offenses except for sexual offenses, And that is not a philosophical matter. That's a matter of we're not set up to really serve that population well. And the only other restriction is we are also not taking the most severe mental health cases that are represented in the DOC population, but everybody else, we want to see you in our program. And so we get a list from the Department of Corrections, and then we will send individuals pre-COVID. We do this by phone now, but pre-COVID, we would get a list of individuals and we would send a staff person to the prison where they were. And now it's done by telephone. And we're just going to tell you more about the program, offer some basic assessment of you and what your needs are. And it's totally up to the participant to decide whether they want to be a part of our program. If the answer is yes, they consent and they move on to phase 2 of the program. Pre-release programming in phase 2. Now, pre-COVID, we had a licensed therapist and an educator located in 3 prisons where we offered services. That has changed a little bit with COVID. It's more of a self-guided approach, and we are in communication with these folks by telephone. But we will be starting up those in face-to-face pre-release services soon. But we do a lot of assessment. Every participant has a comprehensive treatment plan to address every area of programming. We call it the life plan. They come to some one-on-one sessions, and we're beginning to kind of build that rapport to help set the stage for success for release. On the second part of our pre-release program, the second 3 months, that's when our legal fellow comes in to kind of assess any outstanding warrants they may have, so we can begin the process of getting those cleared. We'll begin to start talking to their family members to engage them in our program and educate them on what that's going to be like. And then we introduce 12-step programming. So our clinicians are equally well-versed in substance use programming that is kind of based in the sort of CBT, DBT model, but also we're big proponents of the 12-step and the spiritual model because we understand that they both work. So when individuals are released from prison, they come to our site, which is located kind of like 270 in Page. We picked that site because we did some geo mapping of all releasees from St. Charles, St. Louis City, and St. Louis County. And given the mass transit situation in St. Louis, we couldn't find a location that worked well for any one of those. And so we picked a central location that was the best we could find. And so all of our folks on average have about an hour commute on the mass transit system to get to and from the academy. We pay a gift stipend for attending full day programming on post-release. The gift stipend is not taxable. It has a market value of about $10 an hour, but it's really $8 an hour. So you can earn up to $320 a week for just attending your programming. And that's really important because we don't want you worried about cash initially upon getting out of prison. On the first few days of programming, we're going to help you just sort of get situated with some basic necessities. We'll give you a Walmart gift card, a book bag with toiletries. We're going to take you, to apply for your food stamps and any other social benefits that you might need. If you're ready to take your driver's license exam, for example, we will set you up for that. But after that 3 days of sort of initial work with you to kind of get you situated, we will introduce full day programming to you. And it's going to be heavy focused on behavioral health. And what you see in this part of our programming, you see over time, a lot of hours spent on behavioral health, and eventually those hours kind of tapering down, if you will, and employment services hours going the other way. And that's an important part of our model. But The programming, there'll be group programming on a variety of substance use topics, community and life skills topics, and we will do some HiSET and NCRC preparation courses during the 6-week intensive outpatient program, as well as some digital literacy. So we subdivide our program into like 3-week, what I call 3-week mini masters. And so for every class that you attend, our facilitators are going to be tracking your attendance, your attitude, your engagement. And of course, we drug test randomly twice a week. And so all of those scores form a rubric. And you need a 2.5 on a 4.0 scale to kind of progress through the program. And if you don't, we're going to have a conversation with you about repeating the programming until you can demonstrate that you're ready to move on to the next phase of our program. After 6 weeks of intensive outpatient programming, we move into what we call the workplace simulation. This is a pretty interesting approach. When we first started with class 1, and just to give you an idea, I think we're up to class 23 or 24 now. We actually have a class 25, 26 in pre-release. But so we've been at this for a while, obviously. But we used to send people to full-time employment, like right after the intensive outpatient. And just about all of our participants back then in early 2017, they all got terminated. They were just not mentally or physically ready to hold down a full-time job. You know, anybody could get a full-time job, but nobody was keeping them. And so we decided to just kind of look at the data, listen to our team members, and to kind of recalibrate things. And we decided that starting individuals with a part-time job would be better. And so what we do is starting in the week 7 of post-release, we put them into workplace simulation. So workplace simulation has been co-designed with our industry partners. So we have 3 labs. We have a classroom that looks like the inside of a grocery store that Snooks helped us outfit. We have a classroom that looks like a warehouse environment with lots of shelves and product, the shipping station, receiving station that our logistical partners have helped us outfit. And then we work with a local church near the BJC main campus where we use their commercial kitchen to introduce these food service concepts. And so they walk into the classroom, they punch in, they punch out, there's accountability for time. The instructor, who's a certified career educator, is kind of modeling the behavior of a supervisor. There are lots of hands-on projects that they will actually see in the workplace. And then we are assessing 4 things. We are assessing your attendance. Are you showing up on time, returning to and from break? We're assessing your ability to accept supervision with a good attitude. We are assessing how well you're performing in teams, and ultimately the quality of the work, your production and quality. And so we tell our participants they need a 3.0 and a 4.0 scale to move out into the real world of work. But that happens from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And in the afternoon, they return to regular programming for their mental and behavioral health programming in the academy. And so that's an important thing. The next 10 weeks is part-time employment. Now, before we send any group of individuals out to the work site, we're going to do a 2-hour orientation with their supervisors. And we're going to train them and talk to them and orient them on certain things. Some of the challenges that the population faces that we've been addressing with them, and the possibility that they represent in terms of being a high performer in the workplace. We cover that. How to create a welcoming environment, what good communication looks like with the population. We also do a segment on trauma so that our industry, our hiring partners understand some of the environmental and organizational stressors that could potentially trigger these individuals. And but more importantly, how to utilize Concordance, how to utilize our therapeutic services, our career coaching services, our case management services to help ensure that this individual can be a high performer. So part-time work is we do 10 weeks of that. They're coming back to the academy in the afternoon for continued programming. And for those individuals who need transportation to and from work, we actually provide that from Concordance. Toward the end, we want to see you demonstrate that you can get to and from work on your own prior to full-time employment. So full-time employment is phase 4. And you are still an employee of the Concordance Employment Agency. Now, the agency, we're going to require, for example, like in that part-time period, if you're not coming back in the afternoon, you're not going to be able to work. If in the full-time employment phase, if you're not meeting with your therapist, case manager, and career coach once a week, you're not going to be able to continue to work. We will pull you from work. Our career coaches keep a very intimate communication protocol with supervisors. So for the first week of employment, we're going to be there on site. And then the second week of employment, we're going to get a rubric, like a performance appraisal feedback, very brief feedback from the supervisor on how well participants are performing in the workplace. And then the third week, we're going to call the supervisor. And that repeats over and over every 3 weeks. So we're always coaching against the feedback we're getting from supervisors, and we're doing career coaching sessions with these individuals. If we determine that an individual needs to be pulled back into programming, we can do that. We're not firing them from a job. We are pulling them back to say, hey, you need to work on anger management. Or if there's, the random drug tests or fail, we might actually put you in our, depending on what it is, we might put you in our sober home. We do keep a sober living environment in rural Missouri out west for individuals who need that service, that level of care. So that's an important part of what we do. So full-time employment's 21 weeks. And then you're eligible for graduation from Concordance. And even as an alumni after graduation, we are always here for you. If you need help updating a resume, if you need, to talk to a therapist because you're having a bad day, like we are always here for you. The other thing that happens for alumni is we've identified several other pathways for individuals to move to middle class incomes. And so this is where we introduce, construction pathways or, pathways up the chain where they already are working, apprenticeships and different other opportunities for individuals to make, $25-30 an hour. So that's an important part of what we do. So that is the Concordance reentry model and how it kind of flows over time sequentially. Next slide, please. So some of the downstream impacts that we like to talk about with our stakeholders, most of the crime that's committed in any community is going to be committed by individuals who've already been to prison, probably 50 to 60% of that. So working with a reputable reentry organization is going to make the community safer. I think everybody's aware about what's happening in the labor market these days. I can tell you we have so many employment leads from quality companies that we can't hardly keep up with. But even before that dynamic, we thought about this population as an economic stimulus for our region, given that you're taking one of the most employable populations and converting them to be good tax-paying citizens. There is a huge cost, to incarcerate as many individuals as we incarcerate in this country. And so when we're reducing recidivism rates, we are reducing the costs borne by taxpayers. The fourth downstream impact that we like to talk about is the fact that, mass incarceration has a devastating impact on families. And if we do this well, we can prevent 10 million children of incarcerated parents from going to prison themselves. That's an important part of our work, and it really drives us. And finally, reducing reincarceration rates, helping lift the financial burden of incarceration so that individuals and their families can live joyful, abundant, and purposeful lives. Next slide. Next slide. So several months ago, David Stewart, the wealthiest African-American in our country, who's right here in St. Louis, is the founder, chairman of Worldwide Technologies, decided to take on chairing the First Chance campaign to take our success to markets nationally. And Mr. Stewart has agreed to raise $50 million so that we can introduce this market into 11 cities over the next 5 years. And so that has been, defining our work. What you see here are just potential targets for us, but we're in conversations with several State Department of Corrections and several community leaders about how we might expand what you've just seen to other markets. And so we're really, really excited about taking this St. Louis story, this Missouri story, and our partnership with the Missouri Department of Corrections and others to other communities across the country. So with that, I am going to stop and let's see if we can take some questions from our participants.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Nunn. I think that an overall collective question, and you touched on it a little bit, but could you expand on what counties Concordance Academy serves, please?
Yes. So currently, with Missouri, you have to be releasing to St. Charles County, St. Louis County, and St. Louis City. And we do have a similar relationship with the Illinois Department of Corrections, where we're serving the St. Clair County and Madison County area. So definitely a metro approach.
All right. And so another question that was proposed was, is there any sort of safety net in place for any attendee who may struggle with programming or who may even be released from programming due to failure? And if so, what are they?
Oh, I love that question. So we understand that relapse is a part of recovery, right? We don't hope for that. We come to expect that. And so, so individuals, for example, like if you failed a drug test or something like that multiple times, we're still here for you. We're going to offer our sober living environment to you, and you can stay there and work on your recovery skills. But, even for individuals, who have behavioral issues, who we determine might not be a good fit for our program, as they're presenting certain things to our staff, even if they are away for a while and they want to come back to Concordance at a later date, we are here. Like, we have restart policies for individuals who fail in that way. But individuals, like I mentioned, our rubric and kind of how people progress through the phases, like it's never about kicking anybody out of the program. It's just about having standards, program standards and program rules, and holding to those boundaries. And we found what we've learned is that participants respond to high expectations. And so, we want to protect that, but we're always here for people who fail. We call it failing forward. There's always something to learn. In fact, like if you had a no call, no show and didn't show up for programming one day, we're going to give you what we call a 1-day critical reflection. We're going to ask you not to come to programming. We're going to tell you the reason for that and why that's important, to make sure you call and let people know that you're not going to be there, because that's going to be an important thing for the world of work and just life in general. If you fail a drug test, we're going to give you a 3-day critical reflection. We're going to ask you to reflect on that, maybe do some journaling, talk to your therapist about it. But it's never, we never kick anybody out of our program. Now, of course, if there's some violent or threatening behavior, which we hardly ever see. I mean, I can think of one occasion in 5 years where that's happened. Yeah, we're going to hold fast to that to protect the integrity and the safety, of what we have here. But great question.
So besides people that are currently incarcerated that are going to be released to St. Charles County, St. Louis County, or St. Louis City, what is kind of the ideal client that should be referred to Concordance Academy?
Yeah, so we don't take referrals. We don't pick our own clients, and we want it that way. Occasionally there will be people who hear about the program in prison, and we'll work with DOC to see if they are, appropriate for our program. But, like I said, we don't take sexual offenders. And DOC has a diagnosis a diagnostic process where they categorize mental health abilities, if you will, or disabilities, MH 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we don't take MH 4s and 5s because there's a certain level of care that those individuals need when they release. But everybody else, no matter the offense, no matter the diagnostic classifications, we want them in our program. And so there are a lot of, the prison population is not homogeneous, right? So we see individuals who are highly skilled and highly educated, but have deep substance abuse issues. Every time they release, they start back using, they go back to prison. We see people with low levels of literacy and some learning disabilities who struggle. We see individuals who've been incarcerated, for 2 and 3 decades released into our program. We see individuals, who are younger and who have, shorter prison stays. So every type of risk level, every type of, demographic and type of, prisoner, we have them in our program, like, a lot of variety there.
So just to clarify, we have a couple questions. Even though you guys get a list of people that are eligible for the program, if a case manager or institutional parole officer has a client that they think would be beneficial for the program, or a client is interested in the program, they can reach out to you guys about possibly participating.
They can reach out to our enrollment coordinator office, our Concordance Institute, and we will take that. Absolutely.
Well, great. Well, do you have a success story that you want to share with us about one of your clients?
Oh gosh, so many. Since I'm the education and the workforce development guy, I want to talk about this client. She was one of the first individuals that went through our newer employment model. So I met this person in Vandalia. I think we were doing a welcoming session, talk about our program. And I would remember some of my educators mentioning that this person was pretty much illiterate. Anyway, this person came through the program, and once they got on the outside, we do partner with Parkway for high-sec classes after they release from what the DOC educators are working with them on in prison. Anyway, we were able to get some skill gains. I remember that we had to use images and concept maps and drawings to help, they were a visual learner. So this person was very, very polite, just a sweet old lady. Learned later that was incarcerated for a number of years on a murder charge. And so she went through our workplace simulation and then went over to one of our industry partners. And initially, she had some difficulty with reading like standard operating procedures and things like that. And so we worked with the employer, and we were able to suggest, a mentoring approach. Like if you show it to her once or twice and try to keep her on the same line and not do a lot of changes, you're going to see some success. They said, okay, Rod, we'll try it. The next thing you know it, she's a high performer there. They love her. She's content. I think she's making like 16, 17 bucks an hour. She loves her job. She's been there 980 some odd days. I looked yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Incredible story, I mean, there are lots of examples like that, but that's one that comes to mind.
Well, thank you very much for sharing. So I don't think there are any other questions. We appreciate you guys sharing. It's exciting that you're going to expand to other states. We were lucky in Missouri to kind of be one of the first to work with you guys. So that is very exciting to see that go across the United States and help more people.
Yes, and thank you so much, Annie, for being there for us, for challenging us when we needed to be challenged, and just continuing to support what we do. We love the work we've done with you and your team, and want to continue to do that.
Well, vice versa. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Nunn.
Thank you. Bye-bye.